So I'll just go straight into the questions, and anything that you want to add or say afterwards, just go for it. It's really open to interpretation, really. So what got you into teaching immigrants?
One day my husband and I were walking around the South Coast. We'd gone about 5k and we met a group of Chinese people. We saw them disembark from a bus and they crossed the road, and then they all clustered around a map that one of them was holding. Mm-hmm. And the bus took off. It was about probably 4:30 in the afternoon, and I said to Paul, that's interesting. That's the last bus for this area.
Yeah.
So what are they doing out here looking at a map? This is very strange because it's wild and rough around there. There's nothing.
Mm.
So I approached them as we came up and just said, can I help you? Mm. And some of them had a little limited English and tried to point out, but they'd just come for a sightseeing trip and had got off to see what was here, but had no idea where they were and that they wouldn't be able to easily get back home. So I directed them to where the bus stop was, which was probably 2k away around the coast, and it must have been a Sunday. I knew there would be very little in terms of a bus service there. So we talked about it as Paul and I continued, and decided we would go back and see whether they were interested in coming up to our house for muffins. I was really into making chocolate muffins in those days. And I thought, hey, they seemed really nice and it might be fun. And obviously they were tourists and they could get a bit of a inside view of Kiwi place.
Yeah.
So we found them. They're still at the bus stop. We managed to make ourselves understood. They came up. We made a meal. They took photos of me making chocolate muffins. My kids were just absolutely flabbergasted. What is my mother doing now, But anyway, we had a lovely evening together, and over the next 3 months we saw a lot of each other. Several of them came and had homestays here. Wow. And we went over there for a really delicious meal, and they invited us to their graduation with the city council. They were on an exchange program for 3 months. They were top officials from some of the universities and festival organisations, big organisations in Shanghai, and they'd come on this exchange. And I loved interacting with them so much. I loved the challenge of trying to make myself understood and trying to help them to make themselves understood, and thought, I think I'd like to do that. I was at a time in my life when I was looking for something new to do. The children were well on their way, out of here, and that's what got me going.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. You sort of covered the next couple of questions. So what sort of material do you cover in your classes and why? Like, what sort of inspires the way you teach almost?
All right. Well, when I first began, I taught part-time in the language academies, and those are structured around courses that go from level to level to level and take students from absolute beginner stage with no knowledge of English at all, or they come in as beginners who think they know nothing but actually they do.
Yeah.
And so you start them at that, and you have resource material and heaps of extra stuff to teach them, and you follow a prescribed program. So I was working my way through learning about those levels, but then the whole market and the industry crashed, and language academies were going out of business. And I decided, rather than hang around, I would look for other work. And I managed after some time to get 3 jobs, which worked in very well. It meant that I was teaching every day, part-time, which was really good. and I worked for English Language Partners and taught for them. I began work at Aro Valley, who were setting up a program with another teacher, but she suddenly got pregnant and went overseas, and they were desperate for somebody else, and I just happened to take it on. So that's how I began at Aro. And I worked in Wesley Care, which is another aid agency in Wellington, with new refugees and migrants. Well, some of them not so new actually, but most of them were older, and they met in Newtown. So I had 2 days with them. I had 3 days plus an afternoon with Aro, and I had 1 day with English Language Partners.
Gosh, that's busy.
So that's how I did it.
You're just at Aro now, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes, and then about 6 years later, the funding dried up, educational funding dried up. I can't remember what they called the organisation, but Wesley could no longer continue with the work there, so that released 2 days, and then English Language Partners changed some of the structure, and I found it that I was having to do so much assessment. I didn't want to do so much assessment. I'd rather teach them in the assessment time, and it seemed to me the paperwork was ridiculous, so I decided to resign from there.
Right.
And then that left me 3 days in the middle that I had now free to space my RO over.
Right, so do you have your own sort of...
Oh yeah, I was talking about resources. I got way off that, didn't I? Yeah, so what I had to do was start... I had collected my own resources. Some of the academies had given me resources when I asked them. I said, I'm involved in community teaching now, and they'd given me resources. And then I collected and kept all my old lesson plans and things. So basically I really have my own library now, and I got lots of resources secondhand in secondhand bookshops. I just scoured them, bought a number of them. They're very, very expensive, the books, if you buy them new. So yeah, I don't need to go outside of that, and I'm learning to use the internet more too. That's also come in, that wasn't as available in those days as it is now. It's really,
definitely. Yeah, I've been talking to the ladies at Newtown. They said there's such a big gap in the market for teaching English online and having more sort of tutorials and stuff, which was really interesting. So it's so basic and so needed. So in general, what do you find the students find the easiest and the hardest in your class?
They find, and I would say this would be consistent to what they find in the language academies, listening and speaking is always the challenge for them. Quite a lot of them have learnt English overseas, in their home countries, but they learn it with speakers of other languages being their teachers, and they come over here and they feel like they don't know a thing because they can't understand anything. So it's their listening and their speaking. New Zealanders don't understand their accents or their way of speaking. Yeah. So it's listening and speaking.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think there's things that stand out that they find a lot easier? Like some of the classes I see that they're way ahead, and then other classes not so much. Like, do you think there's points, like certain triggers that make things more difficult or easier for them?
If I'm interpreting your question correctly, the students I teach are older. So in the academies, I taught some teenagers and early 20s, people coming over, wanting to get further education, being sent here by their parents in order to get English in an English-speaking country so that they could eventually go here to university or to another country's English-speaking university. So those were primarily the age, that sort of the age range. Now, and consistent with the other social agencies that I worked for, the students you would get a few in their 20s, but the predominance for me has been 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I get some 70s and I've had 80-year-olds.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And the reason that we get them there is that, well, one of the reasons is that many of them come to New Zealand to act as babysitters for their children's children.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Coming out to look after families while the other side of the family works.
Yes. So they don't actually get out much into the community. They speak in their own languages at home. And then when these children go to university or, go into secondary school, suddenly here they are, they've been here for a long time and they don't have a network, they can't speak English and they feel socially afloat. They're very aware of an isolation in the society that they actually really want to be part of. Yeah. But they can't be. Yeah. And so they come out of that kind of desperation. But they feel embarrassed, very embarrassed about their lack of English. But I actually realise I love teaching that age group because they're so willing to laugh and it's so easy to make them laugh. And my theory, this is homegrown, Wendy, okay? I think if you can get people to laugh, they learn better. And so I pull faces, which you will have seen. And I do antics and I do things that I think they won't expect a teacher ever to do. Yeah. And then they're surprised and then they realise they're allowed to laugh. Yeah. And then eventually I think I earn the right to laugh at them. Yeah. And then it's okay if we all laugh. Yeah. So I don't know whether you've noticed that, but that's a strategy that I use.
No, it's definitely really fun and open sort of environment. Yeah. You can tell that even the new girl yesterday, she didn't feel at all like she was but she didn't feel nervous or...
Yeah, that's good.
She was really open after, introducing herself straight away. Normally someone would say no.
It was risky, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I take a lot of risks.
Yeah, but she seemed so comfortable by the end of it. Which was so awesome to see.
Yeah.
So what personal rewards do you get out of teaching at ARA?
Oh, well, it's really buzzy. It's such a buzz. So I would say all my hormones race. I don't know. What are the things inside you that go buzz? Yeah. It's where you're trying to work with them at the same level. You don't want you want them to feel the same as you, but you do have something they want, and so how to be the same and yet supply something they want in a way that works for them. And that's a huge challenge for me. And some days I think, yep, I nailed it today, and other days I think, oh, back to the drawing board. I didn't prepare that well enough, or I thought I had, but I didn't. I don't know this well enough myself, or I miscalculated the level, or sometimes maybe it's the students themselves and it's not me. I don't know. Yeah. So some days I don't feel quite so proud of myself. Yeah. But it's kind of like a stage as well. So you're acting and drawing people into that. It's like they don't go out and act like they act in class out in the community. I don't think. Yeah. A little different world begins to happen there. Yeah. We tease each other. They tease me, especially the South American blokes. It's nice because I'm old. They're not going to be misinterpreted. So a lot of them come up and give you kisses and stuff like that. Yeah. It's sort of their way, and they're chatting the teacher up. It's cute. And I'm allowed to enjoy that at this age. So there you go. It's a bit of a stage. It's nice.
Yeah, that's neat. What inspires you to keep teaching?
Okay. I love English. And I love writing. And I love how words work. I love the effect that words have. I think words have to just have all the power in the world. And that's why I like literature and I like writing. And I like writing poetry because I believe in the power of words. And when you don't have words, you don't have power. And if you have limited vocabulary, limited understanding of words, you have limited power. That's how it works. I love the feeling that I'm empowering my students. I don't know how much they learn with me because now I teach 20 weeks a year. But the thing that inspires me is the thought that if I can give them confidence to give it a go, then they'll give it a go and find that actually they can communicate. Most of the students are too scared to really try. And that's what really inspires me, to see if I can motivate them. So that's even bigger than them becoming particularly competent. It's about, I'm trying to increase their confidence. But you have to give them language. Yeah. They have to feel that confidence. The thing that I think is like a stamp on my life is in the very first course I taught at Aro, so that would be 10 years ago now. It was the first enrolment day. The community worker, as she was called in those days, or the administrator, her and I, we were very nervous. I was so nervous, I was just about sick. And anyway, we had this load of people, and we had a whole contingent of elderly, late 70s, early 80s Russian women and men. And they were sitting at the desks, and I knelt, as I often do, in front of the table to take some particulars from one elderly woman. And I said to her, "What's your name?" And she'd seen me go through the process with other people, so she must have had some idea of what was happening just from observing. Mm-hmm. But she looked at me, and she sort of made funny mouth shapes and little noises, and then you could see she was crying. And then she looked up, and another elderly lady, Sveta, she leaned over and said, and translated for her. And then between the three of us, we managed to write down the thing. And I realised the fragility and the embarrassment and the utter embarrassment and humiliation she felt, and that's why she was crying, because she couldn't understand. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how terrible to feel like that. That was so impacting. I think it's coloured all my teaching in our community lessons, and that's why I think I clown around. I do anything I can to break the fear that might be there, which I think's there, even though people would never admit it. Some of them do, but some of them probably aren't aware even of it. So that's really informed the way I perform.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of them at Aro have that sort of fear and embarrassment, or not so much?
I think the ones that have been coming don't so much. And see, we have such a variety. Like you'll notice we this year and last year we've had quite a large contingent of young Indian women, and so they're pretty confident because they've had their whole education in English. But when they get here, they're absolutely staggered that nobody understands them. Mm. But do you find them hard to understand? I do.
Sometimes. Yeah, they talk very quick and quietly.
Yes, and they...
with their accent.
Yes.
It's so thick.
And so they don't really know why others can't understand them.
Yeah.
but it's their pronunciation, their enunciation, the speed, and just the incorrect way of putting sentences sometimes together.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. And so, why was I saying that? Oh yeah, so they feel confident, but they can't match their confidence with the response that they get in the community, I think. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't realise that they were taught in English.
Yeah, a lot of. Well, I wouldn't be able to say that all of them are, but I do know that that's often the case.
Yeah, because I can't remember her name. The one that got the job last week.
Rumi?
Yeah,
yes.
She finds it difficult that she knows what she wants to say and she can say it and write it, but she doesn't get understood.
Yeah.
You can see her frustration. Yeah. I've seen her out in the community. In town and stuff, and we were talking, and she was ordering lunch or something, and she was getting real annoyed. Like, you could see that it was devastating that they couldn't understand her.
Yeah,
because
she knows the words.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have said to the Indian women in particular, I haven't had many Indian men, some, but not many, and I have said to them, you do know a lot of English, but the problem is that you need to be understood. Because they think, at first I think they think I'm wasting my time, wasting their time.
Yeah.
But I don't believe I am at all. And Raksha, you'll notice, speaks really clearly now. Yeah. Well, she came last year too, see? So some of those, there's a few that have come a couple of years now. So within a wee while, they really begin to change. Yeah. If they work at it, if they realise that, this is really helping. And I think they do. Yeah. So Raksha is easy to understand now.
Yeah, I noticed that yesterday. Do you think that there's a reason why there's more females than males? Or like,
well, for them, a lot, most of them are young marrieds, and they've come out with their husbands who've got work here, mostly in IT. Right. So they come out for 2 or 3 years. Well, some of them 1, some of them 2, some of them a little longer. And so that's why they're out here. They're out here trying to find some kind of community. Some of them have a young child, and so they put them into a kindy or early school, and then they want to improve their English.
Yeah, I just noticed yesterday, I was like, it's all full of women, whereas it used to be 2 or 3 guys, and now it's...
Yeah, well, that's right. And those at the beginning of the year, we often get quite a few men, and many of them actually are South American, I think, that come. And then gradually, they're looking for work, you see, but they use the opportunity while they haven't got work. Yeah. They try and find some English help, and then they slowly they get work and they disappear.
Right, that makes sense.
It's not always the other group that we get there is the spouses, and this has been both men and women, of students who are doing their PhD, who've been sponsored by some program, I think by the New Zealand government. And so their husband or wife is doing a PhD at Vic, and they are looking to improve their English while their child's at school or something like that. Yeah. So we haven't got any of those this year, I don't think. But we have had sometimes a few from all sorts of different places.
Yeah.
You know.
No, there's a variety in the class.
Yeah.
You know? It's never just...
And you know how we have these young Indian women? Well, about 3 years ago, we had the same number of young Russian women.
Oh, wow. So it's
completely different.
Sort of cycles.
Yeah. And you know how sometimes I bake and bring stuff?
Yeah.
Well, the Russians got into that. Mind you, I did do a recipe thing, but every week we would get something different, exquisitely beautiful dessert type sweets and things. Yeah, it was lovely. But I haven't managed to, without telling them to, I haven't managed to inspire that yet. Anyway.
I guess there's plenty of time for that.
Yeah, we're early on. We're early on. I might have to do recipes.
Yeah. So what are the most memorable moments you have teaching at RO?
Well, that one that I told you is formative.
Okay.
That's huge. I have lovely memories of some of the early days. We would have about 20 students, and we had about 3 older Russian couples, and they used to sit at the back, and the men are very cheeky, and so they would call out cheeky remarks, and I loved that. That was quite delightful. They were really flirty, but their wives were there, you know. It was very funny. What other? Oh, yes, some of the baking or the cooking that they've brought along. That's been memorable, especially at the end. They like the festive things. I love it when they all come here, and sometimes they dress in their finery, and they express their thanks. That's always a very moving time. Last year, one of the women at the very end came to me in all her beautiful clothing and just broke down as she was trying to express what it had meant. Like one of the others had persuaded her to come, and she'd been so frightened. And you'll know who she is. Well, I won't say her name on there, but she was just so frightened when she came. Well, I didn't know all of this. I mean, she was very quiet, took a lot of drawing out, whereas her friends had really, were well and truly ensconced into the system there.
Yeah.
So those times are very moving. They impact me.
Do you stay in contact with any of the students after, or do you see them beyond the classroom after you've taught them?
No, I don't see a lot of them outside class, really. In that sense, we don't just draw from that community around the RA Centre. I mean, like some of my most faithful students for about 8 years came from Petone. Some of them used to come in from Johnsonville, get them from Miramar, Hataitai, Brooklyn, Island Bay, Karori, Kelburn, downtown, the different places around town, the bottom of Brooklyn. So, Brooklyn West. So, really, we've drawn from a huge area.
Yeah.
So, it's word of mouth. But it's also because they're free.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we don't say they have to be permanent residents. And you see, lots of them don't actually have residency, so they can no longer go to English language partners. When I first started English language partners, we could slip them in.
Yeah.
But now it's so strict. You can't.
Oh, so they have to be residents.
They have to be residents to go to the classes,
Which isn't residency 2? Is it 2 years or 5 years? Oh no, it's permanent residence you've got to have. Okay.
Yeah, PR.
Yeah.
Got to have permanent residence. So you never used to. Or they turned a blind eye to it. I still did turn a blind eye.
Yeah, see that seems somewhat unfair.
Well, see, in terms of resource, it's kind of not.
Yeah.
Because it's English, it's the government providing money largely for those organisations. And so they're putting it into those in our country who need to have it, and there's lots of people. Whereas at RO, without that restriction, we get the people who come and go, who come to the country, who leave after 3 months, 6 months, whatever. But we still think that that's a valuable service, and they're always really grateful.
Yeah, no, you can tell.
Yeah. So you'll notice our 2 German women.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're here for one of them's been here a long time, I think, but the other has just been here probably, she's been here a few months, maybe. I'm not sure when she's leaving, but it's great for her in her family circumstances to be able to interact in the community while she's here.
Yeah. You can tell they're really enjoying it.
That's good, because sometimes it's a big, sometimes they're larger classes, and it's hard to know whether they tell me the truth, Got to be aware of politeness and that sort of thing.
Well, just because I'm sort of more...
Yeah, you're just watching, whereas I'm thinking really fast the whole time.
You can definitely tell, like, it means a lot to them, like, being there, and it also gives them a sense of belonging somewhere. So. Like, it's like a home away from home sometimes you can tell for some of them.
Yeah. Well, lots of them in the past, so it'll be interesting to see whether that happens this year, they meet socially outside of class. They form some friendship sort of networks.
Yeah, I've noticed that the Indian girls will walk home
especially,
together. You see them chatting and so you definitely see that. I don't know if they knew each other beforehand.
Well, maybe some of them did, but also they'll do across cultures too, depending on whether they're young mums and things or not.
Right.
You see, and then they kind of do that as well. It's nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are all the questions I have, unless you have anything to add or a story to tell or...
No, it's interesting having you there, because it's another... I can't help but be aware that you're taking photos, so I don't know whether that affects the students. I don't think so. They don't seem to be.
No.
I mean, they seem to be just normal, so...
Yeah, I really when I first got there, I thought it was going to be, they'd be watching when I was taking the pictures and, like, wanting to see them. But none of that's really gone on. But at the moment, a lot of them have been changing so frequently that there's not always the same people. Yeah. But the new German lady is super interested.
Yeah, I bet she is.
Asking questions and what I'm doing and wanting to see and...
Oh, that's interesting.
Which is really neat.
Yeah.
But also, like, you can see that it might be a distraction for her sometimes. Like, you can see that, because I haven't got her permission, so I'm actually not photographing her. But I think she thinks I am. She always fluffs with her hair. And, and she, like, laid all of her stuff out. And, but she isn't, she's only been there 2 weeks. So it's just getting used to it.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Whereas, like, Finette doesn't bother her. Like, she thinks nothing of it when you kind of get up in her face. But
she's beautiful, isn't she?
I know.
I mean, my students are so beautiful.
Yeah,
I reckon. Yeah, they are.
And it's just interesting how it hasn't affected them. I know that some of them were really cautious in the beginning. Like, oh, am I in it? But they
just got used to you, I think.
Yeah.
And it's probably good that you go around and sort of just help a bit too.
Yeah. I think that gives them an extra level. And also seeing like Rumi out in the street and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I see her quite often and we talk and she's always really interested in what I'm doing and where I'm going.
And do you find it hard to understand her?
No, because I'm used to it now.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, like their accents don't bother me. I can understand them. Yeah. Sometimes they speak too quietly, and I find that a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so you see me talking about voice production last time.
But besides that, like it doesn't.
Because they don't believe that, really.
Yeah.
They don't really believe me when I say you need to speak louder.
Yeah, and definitely slow down. They tend to whisper sometimes. Yeah. Especially when they're unsure and when they're thinking.
Yeah, well, and you can understand that because it's nerves, you know. Don't like to look silly and sound silly loudly.
Yeah. But I think we're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Definitely from the beginning, like seeing them progress. Yeah. And they're definitely, like, their confidence is a lot higher than...
Oh, well, that's good to have somebody see that as a developmental thing. Yeah.
Especially, you know, it's a lot easier to see that with the people I've seen the whole time I've been there.
Yes.
Like the newer people, it's a bit...
Yeah.
Especially Indian girls, like that sort of wee group, they definitely feel like they're way ahead now.
Yeah.
Like almost...
So if you think of Deepthi...
Yeah.
Okay, so last year she didn't say a thing. Hardly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's not very good English.
Yeah.
What I just said. But anyway, she hardly said boo. To get her to speak, you know, I'd really have to perform, you know. But this year she's there and she's out there. She's talking as much as she can.
Yeah. You can tell she's thinking all the time too. And when you introduce a new word, she like mouths it to herself about 10 times.
Okay.
Gosh,
that's interesting. See, I don't see all that because I'm relating to them all kind of, and also I'm thinking quickly, what am I going to say next?
There was a dawdle. When you
dawdle.
She got it and then she was like dawdle, and you could see that she was going through really wanting to remember
get that word. Yeah. It's a nice word,
eh?
Dawdle.
And it's real interesting to stop and think of the words that we just throw out there.
Yeah.
And you know, people don't understand the slang, the strange slang that we have.
Well, you know that exercise that I do, I don't know how many times I've done it while you were there, but sometimes on the harder words where there's stress in different parts of the words, especially longer ones or little phrases, and I get them into a line and then we stamp them out around the room.
Yeah.
I know they think, I can't believe we're doing this, you know, and then it takes them a while to get into it. But you see, I think that's incredibly effective because later they kind of remember they're remembering with their bodies as well. Because I've made them do or whatever the pattern
and
is.
With their fingers.
Yeah.
They go.
Yeah.
Like you can see them kind of figuring out the sounds.
Yes.
Through actions.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great way, often to get patterns. Yeah. So I remember doing that a lot with some congratulations is one that often really gets them. So we go round and round the hall with congratulations, which seems really funny, but then they've got it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, click, it's in there. And it's mad and it makes them laugh and they can't, you know, they think this is really stupid, but they do it and they get it. It works.
I've enjoyed watching it, definitely. Like,
oh, okay. So you're not bored?
Not at all. Like, you know, it's given me a whole nother level for the project. Like,
okay.
Like, people are all doing these projects that are, you know, about fashion or...
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm getting a way deeper understanding of the people around me in the city.
Yeah.
And,
you'll always be aware of speakers of other languages
definitely,
now.
It's amazing, and it makes me stop and think. Like, when I'm helping, I'm like, oh my god, my English is like I can speak it and everything, but when I'm writing, you have to stop and write it, and grammar, you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I know, and the grammar is so like how I have to teach it. If you see me teach present simple, which you might not be, but that's what I'm going to do with my... Oh, yeah, no, because my beginners, you don't come to the beginner class.
I saw some of the sheet, the present simple and continuous. Like, I never even learnt that at school.
Well, none of us do.
Yeah. So it was really interesting, like, because we're just taught that this way's this way, and that's it.
Yeah, we don't even know it's got a name.
Yeah.
Well, the construction of, say, the present simple tense, which I will be starting just with my beginners in the next couple of weeks. Okay, you go, oh my goodness, you know, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And they have to get all that, and everything, every verb that they use, they have to think now, is it I like, you like, we like, they like, or is it he, she, it likes? And the question form, do you like? And the short answer, yes I do. Not yes I do like, but yes I do. No I don't. not I don't like, like for short answers. All those things which how did we even know that existed?
Yeah, it's really strange. Like just slowing down a little bit to see that, because I normally wouldn't.
Yeah, no, but you will from now on. Whenever you speak with someone who doesn't have strong English, you'll be really aware.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I feel like I am.
Yeah,
just a wee bit more. Like because I've been at Newtown, I haven't photographed them, but just been there sort of watching, and always asking questions and thinking about how I'm going to word it for them to understand and not overwhelm them, because in the beginning when I was doing introductions, they just didn't want to know because it was too hard. Yeah. And asking questions was out of the question for most of them. Yes. So phrasing it to help them understand.
You have to think quickly,
Yeah, and get my point across without being complicated. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I see that to me is so much fun.
Yeah.
That is so much fun. And often outside of the context, so sometimes I'm in groups where there's a number of us, Kiwis, and then there are a number of people who are from other countries, and I slip very quickly just into being incredibly selective about the verb forms that I choose, that I think that they would probably get, and then you see other people just struggling to be understood. Whereas me, I just think it's so easy to be understood if you pick carefully what you say, how you say things, and I just love that. I just think, I really like this. and they don't know why they can understand you and not somebody else. But you know why.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
So all of that just makes me want to do it. So even if I stop teaching, I'll still gravitate to that kind of situation where I can challenge my own thinking and help them feel like they've had a real conversation. Yeah. So last year in my kind of local cafe, somehow I struck up a conversation with a Japanese woman, and her English was quite good really, but then she left and said goodbye, but then she came back and said, can I take your photo?
I can do this.
Well, she just said, can I take it? I don't want to sound, anyway. She just said, can I take your photo? And I said, sure, So I stood outside the cafe. But she didn't want to go. And then, so I've had another situation like that where we met a stranger on the street, and in the end they came home and stayed the night. And I so badly wanted to ask her home, but I couldn't because we'd just given our rooms away to somebody else. But that's what I like, is that kind of spontaneous connection with people that happens. And with our home, we have been able to do that, but that particular time I couldn't. Yeah. But that's the same thing that made that initial connection with those 10 officials from Shanghai.
Yeah, wow. It's really cool.
And the lovely thing about that was, so my daughter-in-law, the first one, my eldest son's, she was his girlfriend then. Yeah. Only we knew it was going to be. Yeah. So she was just dating my son, and so she came together with them. She was studying Chinese. She knew Japanese. She knew Chinese, so she was able to speak with them. The following year, she won a scholarship to China, and 2 of them met her at the station, and took her to her train to get to her place. And unfortunately, 3 months later, she had to come back because SARS broke out, and all the scholarship kids called home.
Oh no!
So that was a shame, eh?
Yeah.
But so we had wonderful spin-offs from that, and now I've finally lost touch with them all.
Yeah. I guess that happens though with such a huge distance.
Yeah. And they were busy people. I mean, one guy was. Well, at least one was from one of the universities over there. Some of them were some of their Spring Festival organisations and the council and all the rest of it. It was sort of like a council-sponsored swap. these clever people.
Yeah.
Lucky I didn't know at the beginning.
Yeah, because you know that, they know so much.
Yeah.
But you have to they almost feel like you're treating them like they're dumb.
Yeah.
When they're not.
No.
Like,
that's right. So you have to not do that. How do you know?
Which is also a real challenge because you don't want them to feel
But I think if you can joke with them,
yeah, definitely.
then that's like even Stevens then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they can laugh at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.